everybody. Before I go over the tip and how I was fishing this weekend, I want to show you guys a couple of the pictures of the fish that I caught this Saturday. Check them out. Hope you guys enjoyed the pictures. And none of the pictures were photoshopped. They are all the fish that I caught. I think I caught maybe 3 that were over 6 pounds, 2 that were over 7 pounds. I caught a couple 5-pounders and 4-pounders and a bunch of little fish under those weights. But check those pictures out. Hope you guys enjoyed them, and then I'll be talking about how I caught these fish and the pattern that I was fishing in. So I went fishing Saturday morning, and I actually fished the entire day. The day was an overcast day. The winds were very, very light. The wind was blowing from all sorts of directions that day. The water temperatures were probably in the mid-60s. The pattern that we figured out was fishing up against the bank, fishing in vegetation, either throwing baits into the vegetation, around the vegetation, or even just flipping and letting your baits sit in the vegetation. The bait that I used pretty much the entire day and was catching fish was a chatterbait, a Z-Man chatterbait, one of the newer versions. I think it was Sexy Shad. I was throwing a Havoc swim bait trailer onto that, which was probably about the 3.5-inch white pearl swim bait. It was a boot-tailed swim bait, and I had that tail dipped in JJ's Magic, was it garlic scent, chartreuse color, and I didn't know that a chatterbait was weedless until I started throwing it up into the weeds. What I was doing, I was looking for vegetation that was up around the banks of the lake, and when I found those areas, I would throw that chatterbait literally all the way up to the grass, and I would bring it down through all that vegetation that is growing up during this spring. And it would break through all that vegetation. It would, go even through that algae that you usually get stuck on all your baits. But as soon as the chatterbait was coming out of the vegetation, maybe about like 2 or 3 feet, those bass would just swallow that chatterbait whole. And I mean, I literally had to go down in their throat to get it out. But all the fish that I showed you in those clips, those fish were caught on the Z-Man chatterbait. The tip that I want to leave for you guys today is that when you see these vegetation areas along the banks, I'm not sure if the bass are spawning in them, or trying to recuperate from a spawn, or hanging out around the vegetation to eat after they had spawned. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I mean, I fished deep, I fished medium depths of the water, but the pattern that we had, and it lasted pretty much all day, was fishing those vegetation areas that are up close to the bank where the bass would normally spawn. The baits that I would highly recommend would be maybe a spinnerbait, a Texas rig worm, a Texas rigged crawdad, a spinnerbait, maybe a Texas rigged or a swim bait that is weedless, and just work those through there. And you need to work a lot of areas. The areas of the lake that were most productive for us were actually the north side of the lakes where a lot of the vegetation was. Not saying that the lakes that you guys fish, you couldn't catch them in the south or the west or the east sides either, but I'm just saying where we caught them, the majority of them were on the north side of the lakes where a lot of the vegetation was. I'm not sure if that was due to the wind being blocked or what the situation was, or what the reason was, but it was the north side where a lot of the vegetation was. It was in really shallow water, maybe from to the bank. Obviously it would be like a couple inches, maybe about 5 feet off. So it could range from anywhere from maybe 1 to 5 foot, maybe 1 to 4 foot in those areas. And the bass were staged in those areas, and I caught a good bit of bass, and quality bass at that, from throwing those chatterbaits up in those vegetation areas. The one picture I want to show you is I think it's the duckweed that I was fishing in, and there was actually in this picture, you can see it. There is a small little brown cloud, which is actually, it almost looked like a little spawning little hole or a little pocket. And we were actually drifting over toward that area, and I had that the Z-Man chatterbait in there, and I flipped it into it, and I was just popping the bait around almost like a fish was swimming. I didn't see a fish in there. I just, threw it in there and just, was toying around. And a 7-pound, 2-ounce bass came out from, I guess, that vegetation and inhaled that chatterbait, and I wound up landing that fish, and it was pretty cool. And the bait that he had in his mouth, I'm sorry, not the bait, the forage he had actually coming out of his throat and it was in his stomach was a huge crawdad, and it was like a black, a tan, and an orangey color. And after I seen that and a couple other bass that I caught, they had crawfish in their mouth, I started using a crawdad that mimicked those colors, and I actually caught a couple other bass too, flipping into the weeds with those colors. But yeah, the tip I want to leave for you today is to locate those vegetation areas, and don't be afraid to throw up in there. I wouldn't throw your your lipless crankbaits and your square bills in there that have all those treble hooks and stuff like that, because you're gonna get all caught up. You want to throw something that's weedless, something that's not going to get stuck and spook the fish when you try to rip it out. So use baits like I suggested. Try chatterbait, try spinnerbait, a weightless Senko, a Texas rig worm. You can also use any kind of swim bait that you can rig weedless. So try those out. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for upcoming tips on Tuesday. Don't forget you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget you can check me out on my YouTube channel at Bassn with Buddy. Don't forget, hard work and dedication pays off. See you next.